Now we have the word of thanks delivered by TKS Villalan.
Good morning. Dear and beloved President, Honorable Union Minister for Rural Areas and Employment, speakers and dignitaries of the dais, and ladies and gentlemen, I have great pleasure in proposing vote of thanks for this inaugural session. There is a long list of persons to whom the Trust owes its thanks. I begin with Mr. Anbarasu, Member of Parliament, who has been continuously patronizing our Trust and its activities. He was instrumental in making Honorable Minister Dr. Jagannath Mishra attend the session and inaugurate its seminar. I extend my sincere thanks to him for having presided over the function and seek his fullest support and cooperation to our Trust in the coming future. Incidentally, this is Dr. Mishra's first visit to Madras after his induction to the Central Cabinet. We offer our sincere appreciation to the Minister and extend our sincere thanks to him for having inaugurated the conference and delivered a memorable inaugural address. We also thank Mr. Gopalakrishnan, who was unable to attend the conference, Chairman and Managing Director of Indian Bank. The Trust is grateful to Mr. Gopalakrishnan, who is a household name in Tamil Nadu today. His accessibility, friendship, and genuine care endeared him to one and all. Today's event would not have been possible without his support. The Trust extends its thanks to Mrs. Kim Sandy Levin, Regional Director, UNICEF, Nikolai Butrysky, Consul General of Russian Federation, and the renowned scholar and educationist, Mr. V.C. Kulandeshwamy, for their participation and their address on this great occasion. I will fail in my duty if I do not mention the sponsors of this conference, Mrs. Indian Bank, Rotary Club of Madras, Mylapore, Kaplan Point Laboratories Limited, Arma Clinical Services, Dr. Nandakumar Sundaram, and Dr. Ajit Agarwal. We thank them for extending their sponsorship and making this occasion a grand success. We also thank the media pressmen, audio and videographers, photographers, and last but not the least, the administration of the Taj Coromandel for having extended their cooperation in making the section a great success. I conclude my speech by extending our thanks to all those who have attended the inaugural session. Thank you. K. Siva, student of 3rd BSc Mathematics, Abdul Hakim College. Mr. Siva, please sit. And Thiru Noorul Sharif, research scholar, Abdul Hakim College. Politics and Public Administration, University of Madras. Dr. Johnson Sambat Kumar. It's good. That will do.
The forenoon session is about to begin. On behalf of the service, we invite and request Professor V.C. Kulandaisamy, the former Vice Chancellor of Indira Gandhi National Open University and earlier Anna University, to chair over the proceedings. Thank you.
Professor Ranganathan, Professor Muniswamy, ladies and gentlemen, I am thankful to the organizers of this conference for having given me an opportunity to be with you this morning and share some of my thoughts. You are aware, ladies and gentlemen, that this occasion is to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the United Nations Organization. You also know that the UNO is a unique institution struggling for the last 50 years, one, to prevent war, to ensure certain faith in the human right, the dignity of individual human beings, and in the equality of man and woman, and more than that, to promote social progress and standard of living of the people as a whole. I would possibly say that this institution in a way represents certain progress in human civilization and in human culture. It symbolizes the advancement in the cultural evolution of human beings as such. I might elaborate this by one or two instances. As long as we are human beings and not angels, there will be disputes, dissensions, conflicts, and confrontations. In the past, these were settled by war. But today, by and large, at a global level, we have come to the understanding that all these differences could be settled by discussion and mediation. And this should be considered as one of the most important steps in the history of human progress, and the UN organization, in a way, symbolizes this. Sir, there are many who ask the cynical question, what has the United Nations organization achieved in the last 50 years? If I may give an answer, I would simply say that 50 years of its survival is an achievement by itself. What is it that we find today when you look around the world, or for that matter, come to India itself? What is the great struggle that was going on in Gujarat, excepting for survival? What is the struggle that you see in UP, unless it is for survival? Or for that matter, there are many who would congratulate our present Prime Minister for having remained in office for 4 years. So obviously today, achievement is not our objective, but survival is one of our greatest objectives as it stands today. When it comes to institutions, I belong to education. Sir, we used to be celebrating the 25th anniversary of an institution as Silver Jubilee, but today we have no such confidence that we would last for that long, and we celebrate today the decennium. But when it comes to governments, they are celebrating the 100th day in office with advertisements and claims, as the case may be. And therefore, in a complex world with so much of conflicts and confrontations, that this organization representing, as it says, we the peoples of the United Nations, having survived for 50 years is an achievement by itself. But it's not that simple. It has, in its humble way, made certain contributions to peace in the world. Whenever we sent an army in the past, it was always for waging a war. It is the United Nations which has brought in the concept of sending an army for keeping peace. Even that is an important development. There are three major objectives for which the United Nations organization was established. The very first one, as all would have pointed out, is saving the future generation from the curse of war. There have not been any major wars from 1945, even though there have been many wars. What the UNO might have contributed, one may dispute, but it has certainly made its contribution. But now, what is it that we face, and what is it that the UN organization would be expected to do in the coming days? As we stand near the end of the 20th century, we see a peculiar phenomenon. All over the world in the past, and in every country, we had rich and poor people. But today, we find the world divided into two camps, rich countries and poor countries. I again repeat, we had rich and poor people in every country. But the phenomenon of a whole group of countries termed as rich and a whole group of other sets of countries termed as poor is a phenomenon of the 20th century. And how does the divide stand? About 23% of the world's population living in advanced countries have access to 80% of the resources. The remaining 77%, close to 80% of the world's population living in developing countries have what you might possibly say 20% of the world's resources. And the few people who are now in the advanced countries have access to living in 60% of the land areas of the globe, the remaining people in 40%. In the past, if you take a rich country and a poor country, as recently as the beginning of this century, 1900, sir, the richest country was not more than 3 times richer than the poorest country. But today, the richest countries are anywhere from 20 to 40 times richer than the poorest countries. And today, the danger for peace, the danger for a calm atmosphere comes not from, as in the past, religious wars, as in the past, wars for colonizing, or as in the past, wars for ideologies. Now, the wars or any difficulty will arrive because of the kind of conditions that are now existing in the globe as such. On one side, you have the advanced countries, as I said earlier, a little more than 20% of the population, having the right to occupy 60% of the land area, and on the other side, the remaining 80% of the population living in 40% of the land area. And when it comes to the population, from now to 2025, the total increase in the population will be only 5% in the developed countries, and 95% in the developing countries. That would mean that around 30 years from today, you will have one part of the globe almost looking like a vacant land for the other people, and another part of the globe already populous, and the population increasing at a greater rate and seeming at breaking at the both sides of the thing as far as the population growth is concerned. This kind of imbalance will inevitably bring about tensions which are unknown as far as the human history is concerned. These are some of the problems that we face today when it comes to the responsibilities of the United Nations. It will not be war on the basis of religions as in the past, not on the basis of colonizing, not on the basis of ideologies between two countries or more as the case may be, but on the basis of the entire population of the world, which is referred to as we the peoples of the United Nations, now standing divided into two halves, not on ideology, but in terms of stark reality of hunger, deprivation, and poverty. If this problem is not tackled, then the future will be bleak. Now, how do you tackle this problem? It is also recognized that what is needed for quality of life is 1, literacy, 2, a very low infant mortality, and 3, a high longevity profile as far as the population goes. And these things reduce to education and health. The United Nations organization has the UNESCO, has the WHO, and a number of other subsidiary organizations which engage themselves in order to promote some of these requirements in order that you will have a more just world than what you have today. then all these things are possible only if there is peace. If there is no peace, none of these developments can take place. So peace is today is not a big prerequisite for the USA or the UK or some of the advanced countries. Peace today is a prerequisite for poor countries like ours. So what was earlier said as we the peoples of the United Nations, I will replace by we the peoples of the developing nations of the world. And we have greater stake in the promotion and health of the United Nations organizations because the problems of poverty, which is now affecting a large number of people, cannot be solved in isolation. It can be solved only by pooling the resources of the whole world, pooling the technological knowledge of the whole world, pooling the management technique of the whole world, and applying them with a single will in order that at least in another 50 to 20 years, we might possibly have a world not with this kind of a divide between rich and poor, but a reasonably just and a reasonably equitable state of existence. With this hope, we enter the 50th year or the next year and participate in this celebration. I thank the organizers for having given me an opportunity to preside over this brief function. Thank you very much.